he said to me, if you are not embarrassed, you are probably not doing enough hard work in this chapter. He said, unless you're putting yourself on the line, unless you feel complete discomfort, you've probably not worked hard enough on this scene.
So this evening we're here again for another episode of Ladies Speaking. And as I told you before, this is a forum where we empower ladies through inspiring conversations that encourage confidence. And today we have as our sister in spotlight, Ingrid Persaud. Is that how you pronounce your name, Ingrid? Is it Persaud?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, good. And Ingrid, as you would have noticed from my communication so far, is an author, and she's also the winner of the Costa First Novel Award for 2020 with her new book, Love After Love. Yes, applaud her. I see Sonia applauding. Yes, that's worthy of applaud. That's no small feat. And so we are really applauding you this evening, Ingrid. Anyhow, so today again, we will have this conversation with Ingrid. Ingrid lives in UK. Seems as though she spent some time in Barbados as well. And she's originally from Trinidad. So she is really the epitome of a Caribbean soul, who is also dominating in the diaspora. So Ingrid, we're going to get started. Oh, before I get started, I do have to recognize our sponsor, Caliber Development Group, and their development at 10NC in Jamaica, where they have 11 units, 2-bedroom, 1-bedrooms, and studios available for sale. So check them out. The link is in the invitation. So without further ado, I want to welcome Ingrid. And Ingrid, so tell us about yourself to get us started on this conversation. Who is Ingrid Persaud?
Hi, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I'm delighted to be with you this evening. I don't really know how to do such an open-ended question as what am I, but I'm here this evening as a writer, so perhaps we could get some flavor of the writing, and I thought I might start with a little reading from the book. So the book is called Love After Love, and it's the story of an unconventional family. It's a widow, Betty, and her son, Solo, and their lodger, Mr. Chaitan. And they form this really rather special bond, which is broken one night when a secret is revealed. And the story is really about how they find themselves again as a unit, and really how they find themselves. And the title of the book is taken from Derek Walcott's poem Love After Love. If you haven't read it, please go and have a look. It's a fantastic poem, very small, but I felt it reflected the journey that each of the protagonists take. So the book is told in 3 voices, and I'm going to read you 2 sections, one from Betty at the beginning of the book, and then in Mr. Chaitan's voice. And So the first reading is from Betty's, in Betty's voice. It's from the first chapter. In tutus, I dished out the stew chicken, vegetable rice, and green salad. Sunil used the fork like it was a shovel. When he's like this, anything can become an argument, and any argument can become a fight. Like salt cheap. But I hardly put any salt in the food. He rocked back in his chair. If looks could kill. You telling me you cooked this chicken and didn't put one set of salt in the pot? Silence. So what I tasting? Something must be wrong with my mouth. How I tasting salt so? You know my pressure high and you giving me salt? Like you want to kill me, eh? I was careless. I'd left the rolling pin on the drain board, easy reach of Sunil's chair. That rolling pin might have hit the wall or the bed or the chair, but it found me. Doctor said the ulna and the radius snapped in two. My arm was in a cast when we buried Sunil a week later. At the funeral, I told people it was no big deal. I must stop being so careless with ladders. But I took half and left half. People used to look at me and Sunil and say, Betty Gill, you're rare lucky. Mm-hmm. In my head, I wanted to ask if they're making joke. Lucky? That man only gave love you could feel. He cuff you down, honeymoon. He give you a black eye, true love in your tail. He break your hand, a love letter. He put you in hospital for a week, love will stay the course. He take a knife and stab your leg, until death do us part. The next section is more cheery, so don't slit your wrist just yet. So it's in Mr. Chetan's voice, and it's where he's just moved in. It's the day he's moving in to live with Betty and Solo, and it's a very young Solo at this point. Miss Betty declared she was leaving the gentleman to sort out everything and going to take her 5 minutes. Solo put himself in charge of settling me into the house. I was trying to unpack, but the boy kept calling me. Could he show me his room? 2 minutes later, he wanted to explain how to operate the TV. I had barely packed a drawer when he demanded I inspect the kitchen. What to do? He was only being friendly. Solo showed me everything, down to turning on the water heater. There wasn't enough hot water in the pipe. He was a completely different child from the morning they'd stopped to give me a drop. A right little chatterbox. Mr. Chetan, is that the last box you're bringing up? Yes. You stay. There's nothing else to bring. Ouch, oh geez and peas, that hurt. I had stumped my so-and-so toe on the sharp edge of the concrete step. Books tumbled out of the box I was carrying. A torchlight went clanking down the steps. Solo rushed to help. You all right, Mr. Chetan? You all right? My toe, damn, that nail going to turn blue. I hit it, and then the torch dropped on top it. The boy ran after the torch and scooped up the books. You want ice to put on your toe? Don't worry, I'll manage. These steps are very dangerous. My daddy fell down these steps and died right here. For true? Right here? I don't remember anything because I was small, but I know he fell down. I'm sorry. Sometimes he used to drink, get drunk, and fall down. You mustn't say that about your father. But Mommy told me that happened. I hoped Miss Betty wasn't listening. Her window was open, so unless she was sleeping hard, she must have heard. Children these days. I'm sure your father was a good man. Just please be very, very, very careful on the steps, okay? Especially if you come home drunk. You're not going to see me drunk. I take my caribou or stag now and then, but I'm not a drinker. And Solo, you must be careful on the step too. If I knew about your daddy's accident, I wouldn't have let you run up and down with boxes. I'm accustomed to the steps. Nothing will happen to me. He bent down and picked up a large plastic bag. A boy in my class said he'd his teeth carry beer from the fridge and drink it in the backyard. I hope you never do that. Mommy said that's the one thing she will give me licks for. I could do anything but that. It took the both of us till evening to put everything in place. Of course, I could have done it all much faster, but Solo refused to leave my side. I didn't mind, and although this boy's blabbing non-stop, half the time he's muttering to himself. At dinner, Miss Betty acted like she hadn't heard what Solo said about his father. Still, it bothered me. People like to run their mouth, especially when it's nothing to do with them. No, I wouldn't want that for these two. About 8:30, I asked Solo, please, let's knock off for the day. What wasn't put away could wait. Solo, you can help me again, but not too early. It's Sunday tomorrow. Okay, I won't come in your room and wake you up then. Before you go, come let me whisper something in your ears. He smiled and came close. You mustn't go around telling people that your father used to drink. It doesn't sound nice, especially since he's passed. And it will make your mom cry. He leaned into my ear and whispered back, my mommy wouldn't cry for that. Thank you. So that is from Love After Love.
Yes. Okay, so that I found your book, Ingrid, to be a welcome read. Why? Because you had a voice that was truly authentically Caribbean. So as you read those segments, you know, I found as I read, your book is full of dialogue, and you've nailed the whole dialogue thing, makes it real, it's really real as you read it. I can actually hear the Trinidadian accent as I read it. But I kept thinking, I mean, the characters are so strong and they're so real and they're so authentic. What was the inspiration for these characters for you?
Thanks, Cecile. So, you know, every writer brings their life to the page. So even if you're not thinking of anyone in particular, I think you bring everyone you've met, the experience you've had when you come to the blank page. And they are not based on any one particular person that I know. They're simply characters that I kind of fell into, perhaps, read, you know, kind of wrote into being. So they evolved from, I guess, my Trinidadian experience. And it's a little ironic that I feel I can write West Indian characters the best of any, because of course I've not lived in Trinidad since I was 18. Yet those are the strongest kind of memories that I keep.
As they say, you can take Trinidad out of, you can take the girl out of Trinidad, but you can't take Trinidad out of the girl, right?
Absolutely.
So what got, sorry?
Sorry.
So for instance, I wanted to understand what got you started in writing.
So most things, if you look, they say that I came to writing later in life. And I guess that means, you know, I wasn't, I didn't do it as an undergraduate or, you know, so under 40, best of under 40. And I have had 3 careers.
Mm-hmm.
So I started off reading law because I'm Indian from a typical Trini lower middle class home where there were three options, and the options were doctor, lawyer,
engineer.
and since I wasn't going to do failure and I had no brain for science, it seemed like I would have to be a lawyer. So off I went to LSE, London School of Economics, and I read law. And I very quickly realized I was not cut out for this. It wasn't what I wanted. But what I did enjoy was hanging out at university. I really liked that, and I still do. And so I became an academic. It was the only way. After a certain amount of time, you need to get a job, and so I got a job in the place that I was having the most fun. So I did that for quite some time, and I got to the point where I just wasn't sure of my path, just feeling a little bit maybe burnt out, and I decided to take a sabbatical for 6 months, and I saw a fine art course advertised at the Slade School of Fine Art in London. And I showed up for the interview with my two hands swinging. And they said, where's your portfolio? And I said, I don't have one. I said, but I'm very enthusiastic. And after a little while, they said, well, I guess you've not learned any bad habits yet. And so they took me on, and it was a baptism by fire. I'd never done any art. And the only thing I'd use a pencil for was to underline, tick, cross out. And there were all these people doing life drawing, and they were doing all these sort of fancy things, like they'd move their hand like this, and kind of doing perspective, and I had no clue what they were doing. And at the end of the first day, I when they wanted people to show their drawings, I just sort of hung back at the back of the class crying, and every day I'd contract with myself that I would show up for one more day, just one more day. And that's because I'd paid the fee for the entire course, and I had no choice, I felt. So I kept contracting with myself to show up, and eventually, I'd finished the course. And at the end of it, in the exit interview, they said, so what are you going to do next? And I found myself saying, I'm going to do a degree in fine art. And well, that was a bit of a change. So I had to apply, with all the other 18-year-olds. And I went to an adult education college for a year to get the equivalent of an A level in art, because I didn't have an A level in art. And because I was a bit older, I sort of decided, there was only one place I wanted to go at the time, and that was Goldsmiths College. They, just because of their particular program, I thought it was quite rigorous, and there were a lot of conceptual artists coming out of Goldsmiths at the time, who were very interesting. So I applied, I got into Goldsmiths, off I went. Sometime in between, my twin sons were born, but I didn't stop, because I knew that if I stopped, I'd never go back. And so I finished that, and then I then decided I'd like to do a master's in fine art, because really, as I pointed out earlier, like to hang out at university. And so this is another way to hang out at university, to just do another degree. So I did that. And then I just finished my master's and was beginning to show work, and I got a bit of teaching at St. Martin's, where I'd done my master's. And then my partner at the time decided that it was Barbados was calling him. He was born here in Barbados. I'm calling you from Barbados right now, and this is where the kids should grow up. So we came here. They were about 6.5, and they've had the most wonderful childhood. And my partner, it was a wonderful time. He immediately found his kind of tribe. I found it less easy to do so, and through various kind of false starts, I eventually started writing a blog. And the parameters I set myself were that I would write one essay, 900 words, to be published on my blog at 10 a.m. on a Friday. So that was just what I had to do. And so in order to have something to write about, I needed to engage in the community in some way. And that's what I did. So I would have to find something. Some weeks I'd kind of scan the classified ads and try to meet people who had advertised, or call them up and chat to them. I once followed a car, an arbitrary car, for as long as I could, until, well, he turned into his driveway. And at that point I thought maybe I ought to stop in case he called the police for stalking. What else did I do? Somebody mentioned that the best salted fish was in Martin's Bay, and I didn't realize it was just an exaggeration. So I went to St. Martin's Bay, and I refused to accept that they didn't have the best salted fish, even though everyone said they had no salted fish. They had fresh fish. And I just went from house to house asking. And yeah, so I worked hard to get my essays done. And out of doing that for after a while, I just, there's it's just really arrogance. You sort of think, well, if you can write 900 words, surely you can write, a novel of 100,000 words. And so I tried it, and I have a self-published book that I try to forget, but if Amazon won't ever let you, once something exists, they won't let you forget it. So your mistakes will live forever. So it's no longer being published, but it's available secondhand. And my currency must be high at the moment, because you've got to pay quite a lot to get one of those copies. Either that or ask my mother. I'm sure she's got, stacks and stacks of them under her bed. And eventually I tried my hand at another novel. And it was crap. It was really bad. And I knew it was bad, but I didn't know how to give it up, because when you've got reams and reams of paper with typed words on it, it looks so amazing. And you think, surely somebody wants to publish this. But I read it and I knew it was bad. And I wasn't convinced I had to give it all up. So I asked someone to assess it for me. I paid someone to assess it. And instead of assessing it, he was very good. He sent me back a critique. He said, I've just read the first 10 pages, and I think that you're trying to do blah, blah, blah. And I said, yes, that's what I'm thinking I'm trying to do. And he said, well, that's not what you're doing. And eventually he convinced me that really I should just ditch this manuscript and start again. And what you have is Love After Love. Wow. I should mention in between, I wrote a short story, and the short story was what made the novel happen, in a sense. So I wrote this short story called The Sweet Sop, which you can find online. And it won the Commonwealth Short Story Prize, which is a very prestigious prize, and it's got a bit of money with it and publicity. And I entered the same story because I could for the BBC Short Story Prize, and it won that. And that's like, I don't know, one short story doing that much work for you. That was a lot of heavy lifting. And the BBC Short Story Prize is one of those that the industry looks at to kind of find new writers, new stars. So there's a lot of publicity around it. And the second I won it, I don't know, literally within minutes, people were aware that I had no representation, and I suddenly had London at my feet. So from writing alone and reading to my dog in Barbados, I suddenly had London publishing world at my feet, and it was an extraordinary experience. It is literally the equivalent of winning the lottery. So there's a lot of chance involved, and lots of luck. So I won the lottery. I gave myself 10 days to interview agents. I created a spreadsheet and I interviewed everyone, and I told them that I would choose at the end of the 10 days. And through combination of liking a particular agent, serendipity, all kinds of things came together. And I chose the agent that I'm with now, Zoe Waldy at RCW. Amazing, fantastic woman, always has my back, full of integrity. So I showed her the 20,000 words I had of Love After Love, which had taken me a year to hone. And she said, this is amazing stuff. This is fantastic. When can I have the rest? And I lied, basically. I should have said, this is all I have, and it has taken me a year. Instead, I said, you can have the rest of the manuscript by the end of the year. This was October. I went back to Barbados and I sat down and I wrote the rest of the book. And I just got up really to eat, sleep occasionally. The book got finished. What I didn't know, you see, I think maybe I was thinking with my lawyer's brain, because apparently if a writer says to you they'll give you a manuscript at the end of the year and they don't specify which year, like you've got an open season, right? But I didn't know that. So I actually delivered it on the 31st of December at 4 p.m. my time, which was still, only 9 p.m. their time. So I thought I'd really, done this amazing feat, and really the agent was shocked. She'd never expected to get it. Then we worked on it and sold it, and the rest is history.
That's quite an amazing story, Ingrid, because I happen to know that most authors don't even sell 500 books. right? And here it is through. Did you always know you wanted to write though? Was there something in the little Ingrid that said, I will be a writer one day, or this just pretty much was putting one foot in front of the other and it took you to this destination?
I certainly never thought I would become a writer. That wasn't in my profile. Like I said, doctor, lawyer, or failure. Writer sounded like somebody who'd starve, and that
Most of the
wasn't,
do.
was
Yeah.
definitely not on my horizons. But everything I've done has involved some engagement with text, with words, the meaning of words. In law, I used words for arguing, for logic. In my fine art practice, I also used a lot of text. I had signs. I played with language a lot. So I learned to have fun with text in fine art. And so I think it is, the logic from the law and the play from the art that kind of fed into what eventually became this kind of time of writing that happened because of circumstances rather than, if I'd stayed in London, I probably would not have turned to writing. I would probably have stayed with the art. I'd be hanging out at universities. I'm still hoping, I can hang out at a university sometime.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over now to the audience and see if anyone has any questions at this point for Ingrid.
Hi.
Hi, Sonia.
Such a pleasure to speak with you directly. Such a pleasure. And Cecile, I'm very glad you have her. As Cecile said, authenticity of voice seems to be very much one of your principles in writing this particular book. And even though I know it's an old debate, it seems that we're once again, for some reason, discussing around Caribbean authors, their marketability by sticking to Creole, Caribbean English in the dialogue of their characters, and what are the pros and cons of doing that. What was that debate like for you? And did you even have to do any discussion with your editors, publishers about sticking to true Caribbean voices in your work? Over.
Thank you, Sonia. What's an important question. So my book, because it's written in the first person, I'm kind of inside the head of each character. You're in their thoughts, and I didn't think I could write one way of them thinking and another way of them speaking, and that's why the dialogue and the prose are in the same register. And that register to me seemed to, if I'm writing about Trinidadians, I want to write as I think they would be. There is, of course, the burden of representation that Trinidadians will, some will argue they don't speak like that, they don't, that does not represent them. My view is that that discomfort stems from an idea that the only English that is acceptable, that is correct, is the English that is dictated by a very tiny minority. And I feel no constraint like that. I feel that the English that we speak in the Caribbean, that belongs to millions of people, is English. It is not a dialect, it is our English. And therefore, why shouldn't I write in our English? So I write without apology, without translation. And I write from the same place of privilege as anyone else who is writing in their language. I'm writing in my language. And I had no pushback from my agent. She never considered it an issue. The book was, hotly contested. There was a 7-way auction, I think, for the book, and at none of the publishing houses I met did I ever encounter any pushback. Not a single publishing house said, could you do a glossary for us? Or, do you think you could tone it down? Or blah, blah, blah. Never. In the editing process, we would often discuss particular words and if the meaning could be found within the integrity of the language. And would you believe the most difficult word was stoops? Because a stoops is not just one stoops. A stoops in one context is a throwaway comment, in another it's a sign of disgust, in another it's something else, so they're like, the stoops is getting a bit difficult for us. And so we talked about that, but that was such a nuanced thing, and stoops remains in. And really I and then that brings you to questions of inclusion and exclusion. And I guess I was being very exclusive in that I left the appreciation of stoops to a local audience, and only they will get the full strength of when someone stoops, and other readers will only know that it's some sort of teeth-sucking noise is being made. And that's okay too. That's my artistic decision to make. So, I got lucky, I guess. Again, I didn't have any of those issues. So, does that answer your question?
Very well. Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Yeah, an interesting thing for me, Ingrid, when I read the book as well, was that I felt in each case as though the story was speaking to me directly, whether it was Betty or Chitan or Solo, that they were talking to me. They were telling their story to me. Like I felt included in the story, which to me was really very interesting. Was that intentional?
I guess any writer would hope that would happen, but that's just our hope. So I'm grateful if it does reach you like that.
It did. Any other questions for Ingrid? And how did the book change you, Ingrid?
Well, the different parts of the process, the writing, the writing of the book and the receiving of it, I think gave me confidence that I didn't have perhaps before. The publication of the book in lockdown was an anxious thing, but it turned out I had such an amazing team at Faber, just very nimble, just very responsive. And so their budget for kind of the launch day involved a steel band at King's Cross, and they were going to be handing out sort of extracts of the novel to people on trains. And then there was going to be this big party in the evening at my favorite bookstore. And of course, in lockdown, absolutely none of that happened. I never got, you know, my fancy frock. I never got my steel band. I never got any of the T-shirts, any of the sweatshirts with love after love on it. I feel really cheated out of all of that. You can hear the bitterness in my voice.
We're doing it. We're doing it next year. Don't worry.
So but amazingly, I have had events absolutely all the time since I began, since the book was published. And then they brought the paperback forward, and they said they'll publish in January and all the bookstores will be open, and I'll Waterstones planned, you know, Piccadilly Waterstones was giving me a whole window, and you know, all that great ego stuff, and then we were in a second, you know, a third lockdown when that happened. So I was screwed there again, and the bitterness just kept going. So yeah, I don't think I'm doing too well.
You're doing well.
Of publishing, but it's been an amazing journey. And the upside of having a successful first novel is that it's easier to sell the second novel. At least that's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That's my plan.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I wanted to come in with another question, if I may.
Sure.
Okay, well, another big thing for me in this novel was the food and the actual act of cooking. It wasn't just that food was described, but the preparation, the recipe was all there in the book. Why? Are you just a food lover like me? And what was it that you think that the different types of encounters with food told us about the characters?
Very interesting question. So two parts, and I'll try to bring them together, Sonia. So, you know, I'm talking to Caribbean women, so I don't have to explain to you that food is you know, absolutely part of who we are in every way. And I have never gone to the beach for a lime without discussing what we're going to eat. Never once. It would just be unheard of. What, you're just going to have a good time? I mean, you know, without food. And so the idea of food in West Indian society, to me, is completely integral to our being. We love food. We talk about food. We plan food. So at one level, it is, to me, such an integral part of being particularly a Trini, that I couldn't think of a way of writing about Trinidad without also including food. So it seemed to me a foregone conclusion that food had to be in there. And then the question was, what food and what purpose, as you said, the food serves in it. And I think with the book, food, the closest analogy I can think of is a gift. You know, it's about what happens in the giving of a gift and the receiving of a gift, and that interaction and that space. What does that hold for us? The love, the responsibility, the reciprocity, all of that could be conveyed in the preparation of food. Although maybe I went overboard a little bit on the preparation of the food. you know, there's nothing like procrastination when you're writing. So I'd never cooked cascadoo. And so, you know, I watched videos of cooking cascadoo for like 3 days, you know, unconvinced I could write about it unless I was totally kind of saturated in cascadoo. So I watched, you know, not only the cooking, but the catching, basically anything that had cascadoo in it and was on YouTube, you know, I had to watch several times. And it's only when, and that's partly a way I do write, which is that you kind of, you fill the tank, you fill the tank, you fill the tank. And it's at the point where the tank is just about to kind of spill over and create a god-awful mess. And that's the point I start writing, because I can't avoid it anymore. But I do really push it to the edge. And I think it is procrastination. So many wonderful women have joined us, and some names I recognize. Be really grateful if you could turn on your cameras. It's so much easier to talk to a screen of people rather than a blank set of names.
I was particularly interested in the sex scenes, though. You want to tell us about how you wrote those? Just like you told us about the cooking, you want to tell us about those sex scenes? They were stimulating if you haven't read them.
So again, the internet provided so much. The sex scenes. So the first scene I wrote for the whole book was the scene where this young man Solo goes to see a prostitute, and he goes to exchange emotional pain for physical pain. So to put that in its boldest terms, he get beat. So he go in, she beat him up with a belt, he feels better. Things happen. And anyway, I gave this to my mother to read. My mother and she said it was all right. She said, but I don't think the last thing you said the woman did to him is possible. And I had to say to my mother that she was just to look it up, because really I was not going to tell her anymore. And that was, so after that, I didn't give her any more of the sex to read. But I then started to work. I was working, my first reader is a young man. He's in his early 30s. He must have been just barely 30 when I met him. And his name's Luke. So as far as I'm concerned, Luke is a child, but he's an amazing critique, and we have an incredible working relationship. Anyway, so I've got this little, child reading my work, and I write the scene. The next sex scene I write is a scene of failed sex, where Betty and Mr. Chayton try to get it on, and it doesn't quite work out, because it turns out, he doesn't like women, and she's probably too drunk. Anyway, whatever, it fails. And I wrote it like this. I was like, oh God, no, my mother is going to read this. What is she going to think of me? And all the people that are going to read it, what are they going to think of you? And it was just cringy stuff. And Luke kept waiting to get this chapter. And I said, finally, I just said, look, I can't give it to you. I just can't. And I said, I'm embarrassed. I just can't. And he said the most wonderful thing. He said to me, if you are not embarrassed, you are probably not doing enough hard work in this chapter. He said, unless you're putting yourself on the line unless you feel complete discomfort, you've probably not worked hard enough on this scene, because it is a scene of discomfort.
Interesting.
And I think what this young man did for me was to give me permission to then go on and write everything that I did write. Because whenever I felt real discomfort, and that discomfort could come from any number of things, writing about self-harm or something else, I used those feelings to gauge whether this is working or not. And when things are coming really easily and I'm having a load of fun, I often stop and think, what am I doing? I'm doing some cheap one-liners. I'm not pushing myself. I'm having a good time. I'm just skating by. And I know that I have to stop and look at my work again. So that's how I do it. I feel the discomfort of engaging. I try not to think of my mother's face reading. Just an aside, one of the things I didn't think about when I was writing this was that I would acquire an international gay fan club. So I get regular, really mushy, sweet kind of fan mail from gay men all over the world. I don't know what use that is to me, but that's what happens. So I've got,
Wow.
Right now I'm in Barbados and it's beautiful. It's nearly sunset. So I'll just read something kind of soft and easy, just one small paragraph. And it's in Mr. Chaitin's voice. I didn't say a word to a soul. I got up easy, put water and a couple beers in the cooler, and slipped away before the rest of the house was awake. In traffic, the drive can be all kind of 2.5 hours, but on a Sunday before 6 o'clock, man, I was dipping my toes in Maracas Bay in under 2 hours. Whenever I can spare the time, that is my spot. Half the pull is the beach, and half is the spectacular drive to reach there. If your heart's weak or you're timid, leave the driving to others. The roads are narrow and winding as they hug the sides of the northern range. Lose the fear of being pushed off the precipice by some crazy-ass driver and enjoy as each hairpin twist unveils another breathtaking view of lush green mountains rising from the turquoise sea.
Nice. You see your words are so well chosen that they're very picturesque. You can see where the character is as they tell their story. And I thought that was really amazing.
I think you're so inspiring to me and also to many. In my case, I studied A-level literature and I've always wanted to write a novel, but life has got in the way and my career is very different now. But at what point did you want to write a novel? Is there still hope for those of us who were 18 and wanted to write and didn't? Can we catch up later in life?
As I've explained in my journey, I think that if my story says anything, it is that you're never too old to write. I also think that in your 20s, possibly even in your 30s, you have nothing to say, okay? You're arrogant, you're full of shit. So it's so much better that you should take up something like writing later on in life, when life's knocked you about a bit and you have some compassion and empathy for people and for yourself. So I would absolutely recommend taking up writing later in life. And someone like you, Joe, who's had an amazing, different career, well, those things all feed into your writing. They're not excluded. They are part of the kind of writer that you can become. A writer who appreciates. So, for example, I could write a character who's a risk taker, I think, the way that you might write it, because you've been dealing with kind of cutting edge technology and bringing new products to market. I mean, you're going to be able to write such amazing.
I'm quitting my day job and I'm starting writing now, Ingrid. You are inspiring me. You really are.
So Ingrid, what can you share with us about the writing process now?
So I always get asked about the writing process, and I think it's because perhaps for long-time writers have, like every other profession, maintain your barriers to entry by creating mystique, just what I call the alchemy of writing. That somehow that there's something special that happens in the moment, and special things do happen in writing, but they only happen when you're writing. So the process of writing is you get up every day and you write. So if you have 20 minutes a day that you can write, that you write for those 20 minutes. I get up, I have a cup of tea, I have a banana, and I open my laptop and I start work. I feel that there's nothing else I want to do with my life other than to do this. Some writers talk about how difficult writing is. Well, they should do something else. You know, of course it's difficult, but everything's difficult if you push yourself. But I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do. I can spend a whole day on a sentence, you know, tweaking one word or the other, and getting it right. So there is no alchemy. There is seat on bum, bum on seats, and write. And when you're not writing, you are reading, because that's how you learn your craft. You find out how other people solved problems, how they portrayed people, how they dealt with time, how they dealt with difficult issues. And when you're not either reading or writing, you should be engaged with life. That means you should be talking to your children, your partner. You should be going out. You should be engaged. You should embrace life. And that third part I haven't quite worked out yet, so I'm working on that. But that's the idea. Because if you don't embrace life, if you are not in love with life, then you'll soon run out of things to say, or you will become very inward looking. And I don't think there's that much room for inward looking art. I mean, it just gets boring. So that's the process. I write 1 million drafts, and I don't know how many drafts I write, because I just rewrite and rewrite and rewrite until it's correct. There's no such thing as I've written 2 drafts and therefore it must be right. You write and write until you've got it. You're doing the best job you can do, and you will know what's the best job you can do. You'll feel it. You'll feel it in your. You'll feel it in your stomach. That's where you'll feel it. If the words are coming from your throat, that's just half-ass work. If it's coming from your stomach, you have really given it something.
You get excited.
You get everything.
I'm afraid.
Your body is activated by the work.
Yeah.
If it's like that, then you're doing good work,
Yeah.
or you're working. You might not be doing good work. I mean, I spent a day last week, I mean, just slogging. And I looked at the end of the day, I had 340 words, and I was so upset. But you know what? There are 340 words I've kept, as opposed to 1,000 words which I've discarded. So, you know, it just kind of, so there's no target. I used to have a target.
Okay.
I still try to have some sort of target, but it doesn't always work.
Mhm. And you edit as you write, or you just write and whatever comes and fix afterwards?
Depends. If I'm starting a project, I'll just free flow write, just until it's like warming up.
Mhm.
You know, you just kind of write, just to kind of get yourself flowing, knowing that you're probably going to have to throw it away. And I guess maybe if there is any alchemy, it's the alchemy of throwing away stuff. It's like, don't be precious with your work. It's not all good just because you've written it. So get rid of the crap.
Okay.
If you had, well, two questions. I don't want you to end this session without telling us about your next work, because I'm sure everybody like me is eagerly waiting, and we want you to be very legal and correct and deliver on time so that we can have it as soon as possible. But before you go there, your own reading, who do you love to read when you're not reading your own work? Over.
So the question of reading, I have no favorite authors. And the reason I say that categorically is because I read different people for different things at different times. So work speaks to me depending on what I'm looking for. So if I'm looking to be inspired, I might read poetry. And that poetry could be anything. It could be Maya Angelou. It could be Derek Walcott. If I'm struggling with a short story, I might read Olive Senior. I might read William Trevor. If I'm, you know, it really is difficult to say that I'm reading anything other than I'm looking for words that speak to me, that soothe whatever it is that I'm trying to soothe. But there's something else I feel I should be saying that I'm not about what I read. And there are times when I think in this COVID times, we've all had real difficulties with connecting, feeling alienated. And some people have been able to read a lot. Others have found it impossible to read. And I think we have to be kind to ourselves and say, you know, whatever is going on, these are such exceptional times that we have to be okay with that. I spent the last summer, reading everything that Toni Morrison has ever written. I just decided that was what would feed my soul. And it absolutely did. You know, that was just my thing. I did. So there's no prescription. You have to kind of do what feels right, and be kind to yourself.
So what drew you to Love After Love by Derek Walcott at this time? Did you start with that, or as you wrote, you saw the nexus to that poem?
I wish I could say that it was, you know, the starting inspiration, etc. No, it was when I was looking for a title. It's like,
Okay.
where am I going to find a title? Poets. They're so much better at words than the rest of us, you know.
Okay. Interesting.
And then I started looking, and this one spoke to me.
Okay. Good. You heard about your first reader, Ingrid. So that's a concept that, or that's a part of the protocol of writing, that you have first and second readers. How does that work?
No, I think your first reader is just who reads your work? Who do you trust? Who do you ask, you know, their opinion? And there are lots of people that I ask. I'm always asking my poor benighted friends to read stuff. But Luke, I have a special regard for, and we have we just have a lot of respect, and he understands what I'm doing, and I have so much respect for his opinion on things. So he is my first reader, but he's not my only reader. Mm-hmm. You know, I will give stuff to all my friends to read. But there was a second part to Sonia's question, which was about what I'm doing next. And we have a saying, Sonia, in Trinidad that, well, two things that really are important here. One is the concept of maljo, or bad eye. And when you don't want people to put bad eye on your work, so you don't show them. The other thing is that if you tell someone your stuff, they might put goat mouth on it. So the combination of bad eye and goat mouth could really just wreck, you know, a career that's starting. So I don't feel really able to kind of, you know, expound on what I'm doing next, but I am writing. I've got a bit of one novel finished that I've kind of put aside, and I've started writing another one because I've sort of very enamored right now with early 20th century bandit from Trinidad called Boise Singh. And I am interested in Boise Singh, but I'm far more interested in the women in Boise Singh's life. And I'm very interested in reclaiming their voices and finding out more about them, because they were pivotal in his life. And I think that they need to be reclaimed. So I think that's kind of maybe where my interests lie at the moment. But I can't get into Trinidad because their borders are closed. So that's really kind of hampering my work at the moment. That's my excuse anyway. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you all so much for tuning in from different parts of the Caribbean. It's wonderful to be able to talk to you all, and you know, I'm easy to find. I'm all over social media. It's my absolute social media whore. So find me if you want to ask me anything privately.
Great. And so with that, I am going to thank all of you who have been here this afternoon. Again, I apologize for the mix-up in time. We will get it right next time, because we all know now what 4 p.m. EST is. That's 4 p.m. in Barbados, 3 p.m. in Jamaica, 4 p.m. in Canada, USA, etc. So, Ingrid, again, I want to thank you for agreeing to be our March 2021 Sister in Spotlight. I want to thank you for sharing all that you have shared with us this afternoon, that have helped us to understand that journey that you have had. And I think I can say that I speak on behalf of all the sisters here to say that we celebrate you, we celebrate your accomplishments, and we're all looking to see your next works. And I'm sure that that will inspire not only Joe, but Sonia and Cecile as well, to do some writing of our own, and know that we can look to you and say, well, you know, they say, Ingrid has done it. That is our goal. We want to do it too, you know? Yes. So ladies, thank you for showing up here. This episode was brought to you by Caliber Development Group Limited, and I hope to see you back next month, 4 p.m. EST in April, and you'll soon hear who our next Sister Spotlight will be. So until next time, bye.
Bye. Thank you.